Hello, welcome and good morning to Labour Social. I'm Graham Hughes. This is Morning Brew. It is Wednesday, the 3rd of January, 2024. We're here. We're not going anywhere. We're here for the whole year and maybe afterwards. And this is going to be a momentous year for democracy. It could be the year of democracy or it could be the death of democracy. We're going to have to wait and see. However, it does look like the Tories are going to get absolutely battered in the next election. Now, I know a lot of you are getting very excited about that, and I am too. I've got to admit, it does sound really quite, I don't know if this is the right word to use, but sexy. You know, sexy that the Tories are going to lose so badly in the upcoming election. However, we need to take all the polling data with a little pinch of salt. And I'll tell you why. First of all, the Labour Party has been consistently 20 points ahead in the polls for over a year now. So that looks like a solid lead, right? And hopefully it will translate into the Tories losing over 200 seats in Parliament. Could do. Leaving them with not perhaps not double digit numbers of MPs, but maybe in the low hundreds. That could happen. But, I don't want to rain on anyone's parade here, it probably won't. All right, I've got some better news coming, but let's just look how it will go in the lead up to the election. First of all, you've got the fact that whenever we go into elections, the polls always seem to merge a little bit. Converge, sorry, not merge. That's the wrong word. They tighten up towards an election. There's a few reasons for this. A big one is going to be the media. The media is no doubt going to be running scare story after scare story after scare story about what Labour are going to do. Once they're in power, they're going to force everyone to be woke, force everyone to use the correct pronouns, force people to be respectful and nice and wholesome bastards. They're gonna make it so that people can fall in love and actually be together. How dare they? This is all going to be on the front cover of the newspapers. Whether it's true or not, it's another matter. It's the fact that they're going to scaremonger the 1/3 of Tory voters who are currently saying they're undecided into returning to the Tory fold. Because for a lot of people out there in this country, that's all they know. That's genuinely all they know. I said this last night and it sounded a bit harsh, but I'm going to say it again. They're cowards. They're intellectual cowards in that they don't use the critical faculties that God gave them, if they believe in God, that they were born with, let's say. They have decided that everything that they need to know about the world, they learned at the age of 6, or let's say 7. Give the Jesuits a little bit of a thumbs up there. Everything they knew about the world, they needed to know about the world, they learned at the age of 7, and nothing will change their mind about anything. No new information will change their mind about anything. And there's a great quote, don't know who said it, but they said, there's no point in having a mind if you can't change it. I know that James O'Brien uses that quote a lot, but it's very true. And there are many things that I've changed my political opinion on over the years. I'm more anti-monarchy than I ever was. I definitely changed around 180 on universal basic income. When it was first pitched to me, I thought, we'll never be able to afford that. And then actually once it's explained a little bit better, it makes sense. I've come around on a lot of things. Private schools, I never really thought about private schools too much. They were just something that was there and it wasn't really my world, but, they seemed happy enough, I guess. But growing up and seeing the amount of damage that these institutions do to the fabric of our nation and the stratification of the nation. There's a line for you. In that, we have a tremendously class-based system in which if you are born into the right caste, let's say, you can't progress above a certain level unless you're incredibly lucky or incredibly talented or perhaps a bit of both. But if you were born at the top level to start with, you can be incredibly untalented and incredibly unlucky and incredibly unequipped to do the job that is bestowed on you, and yet there you are earning a 6-figure sum each year, being absolutely rubbish at your job. So let's get back onto the polls anyway. So there's going to be 1/3 of Tory voters who are going to probably swing back to the Tories when the crunch comes, because they'll turn up at the polling booth and they'll get a bit of the cold sweats on thinking about voting for Labour or voting tactically for the Lib Dems or the Greens or Plaid Cymru or the SNP, and they'll just tip the box next to the Tories. The other thing is, we're looking at the voting figures across the country. Okay, so there's a survey. It's done. It's probably 1,500 people, a representative cross section of society, and you ask them who they're going to vote for, and then you get that data and you say, right, this is going to be who they're going to vote for. However, there are a lot of Tory safe seats that have maybe 60% voted for the Tory candidate in the last election. This election, they're going to lose a lot of those votes, but they're not going to lose enough of them to lose the seat, because we have a first past the post system. You only need 40%, if that, to win. So they can afford to lose 20% of the vote, and they'll still win that seat. So when we're talking about how the Labour polls, as they are, stretch ahead so much upon the Tories at the moment, it doesn't necessarily translate in our first past the poll system into the Tories going down to 179 seats or even less. It might not. And there's some good news out there. First of all, only 1%, as we keep saying, of 18 to 24-year-olds are thinking of voting for the Conservatives. However, 18 to 24-year-olds traditionally don't tend to vote in great numbers because, like I keep stressing on this channel, they've usually got better things to do than to involve themselves in politics. Me and Phil were looking at the stats on both of our channels the other day, and it turns out that hardly anyone in that age group watches this channel. So if you are in that age group and you're watching this, thank you. Please vote. Please tell your mates to vote. It's kind of important. So we've got to watch out for that. We've got the Labour's poll is probably Labour's lead is probably going to decrease in the polls. Rishi Sunak is unlikely to call a spring election if it looks like he's going to get absolutely battered. He might wait till October to have a general election, which he can do. He can just call it whenever he wants, because they got rid of the Fixed Term Parliament Act, which was nice. A bit of subversion of democracy there. And don't forget, we've got to have voter ID in the polls this year. And a lot of us who were in the local elections last year, a lot of us weren't in the local elections last year. For instance, where I live in Durham, we didn't have local elections. So when I vote this year, it will be the first time in my life that I've actually had to show voter ID in order to vote, which I think is a disgrace. I think it's an absolute disgrace because it disenfranchises people. Over 26,000 people were turned away that we know of in the polls in the local elections, and that wasn't every constituency. This is going to be a general election, every constituency. It's going to be a nightmare. So there's a good chance that Rishi Sunak will delay until October, and then events, my dear, events. Something might happen. No one could have predicted COVID. Well, they kind of did. There was a movie, what was it? Contagion? No, that was the one with Dustin Hoffman in it. There was a movie that came out in 2010, and it pretty much predicted COVID down to a T, except for the fact it was a lot more deadly than COVID. COVID was sort of 99% survivable, whereas this one was sort of 99% fatal. Because, movies. We've got the chances of something occurring that gives the Tories a boost. But having said all that, and with all those caveats, the Tories still look like they're beat. Even if they only win by Labour only win by 5% of the vote, which is the lower end of this. I mean, they're 20 points ahead at the moment. That'll probably translate to being 10 points ahead in the actual election, we hope, which would be devastating for the Tories and give Keir Starmer's Labour Party a sizable majority. But let's say it's only 5%. Let's say it's kind of like not enough for Labour to actually have a majority. The fact is that there are enough anti-Tory parties in Parliament, or there would be enough anti-Tory MPs in Parliament, that we could have a minority Labour government, or we could have a coalition, Labour, Lib Dems, maybe even the SNP, I don't know. Whereas the Tories have very few other parties that it can go into coalition with. Maybe the DUP, who've only got 8 seats, so being generous. it's not going to be enough to form a functioning government. Now, what will happen in this case is that Keir Starmer doesn't have to be leader for very long, doesn't have to be in government for very long before calling another general election. And here's where the twist comes. The Tories, beaten in the next election, and the way that the trajectory that they're going at the moment, they're going to just fight amongst themselves. Rishi Sunak's going to have his trade deal with India in his briefcase because he's a briefcase wanker, and he's going to fly off to his forever home, America. That's where he really wants to live. He doesn't want to live in the UK. He'll probably live over there as a resident for many years, so he doesn't have to pay as much tax as a real American. But he'll have his taxes finance going through certain streets to make sure that he doesn't have to pay much on his windfall that he is going to get as a result of the UK-India trade deal, which David Cameron is currently working on to try and push through before the next election. So the Tories will fall into disarray after the next election if they get beat, which looks pretty likely. That disarray is like manna from heaven for Labour, because while the Tories are infighting amongst themselves, maybe 6 months down the line, maybe a year, Keir Starmer can call another election, in which case the Tories won't be ready for it. They'll be too busy bickering amongst themselves. They might have put an absolute lunatic in as leader, an unpopular lunatic like Suella Braverman, and Labour could call another general election and win this one outright. And you could see it happening. So either way, whether the Tories lose by a little, or even if they technically win by a tiny bit but don't have enough to form a majority government, their days are over. They are toast. However, I must stress that this means that we cannot rest on our laurels. We can't just look at the polls and go, oh, we're 20 points ahead in the polls, and think that we are sound and we're sorted and there's nothing to worry about. There's plenty to worry about going forward, and anything can go wrong. Anything can happen. We can all look back to 2016 when it looked like, from the polls, from the predictions from everyone, apart from maybe the bookies, thought that Remain was going to win. Maybe not win comfortably, but it was going to win. However, it didn't turn out that way because the Leave lot, cheaters, private school cheating bastards who know that they can break the law and get away with it because they all went to private school together. I'm talking about Dominic Cummings, Aaron Banks, Michael Gove, and Andy Wigmore, Boris Johnson, obviously, Rees-Mogg, all the top Brexiteers that you can think of off the top of your head. Lawrence Fox, for God's sake, all went to some posh, expensive school. And they were taught at that school that they were above the law. I assume that's what they were taught because you can't have so many, like if there were a group of schools that were paid for by, say, Saudi Arabia, and they were all over the world in Muslim countries, and they resulted in a massive proportion of the children who are educated in these schools becoming terrorists, you would call them a terrorist training camp, wouldn't you? I mean, I know that a lot of the children, in fact, the majority, maybe the huge majority of children who went to these schools don't turn out to be terrorists. But the fact that the proportion who do is a lot larger than in normal state schools, that would give you cause for concern, right? Why is it any different? Why is it any different with private schools in this country? I have no idea. But anyway, they were told, you're above the law. It's an advisory vote anyway. Go for your life. Do whatever you want. Even when a Labour MP was brutally murdered, a mother of two was brutally murdered in the street by a lunatic screaming Britain first, you can guess which way he was going to vote in the referendum had he not been in a cell at the time. You can see the level of depravity on the other side, because that morning was the morning that Nigel Farage unveiled the poster Breaking Point with lots of brown faces on it, and it was a bigger photo that had the white faces cropped out. That's how racist it was. And then they said, "Oh, we're going to suspend campaigning because, out of respect to Joe Cox, who had just been murdered by a Leave voting lunatic, by a Brexiteer." No, actually, Leave.eu and Vote Leave continued to campaign. They didn't stop. They said they were going to, but they didn't because they're liars. And then we had Trump in 2016, who, against the odds, got in. And on the 538 website, They were giving it 90% probability of Hillary Clinton winning and Trump less than 10%. And he still won. So we can't rest on our laurels. We have to fight for every vote. We have to fight for every seat in this upcoming election. If that means voting tactically, we need to vote tactically. Even if you are a dyed-in-the-wool Labour supporter, you're going to have to tick the box that says Lib Dem and vice versa, because we need the Tories out. And we don't just need them out. We need them destroyed and just, put on their knees so they can never rise again. Honestly, they need to be destroyed for what they've done to this country, and the amount of larceny and criminality and crooked dealings, nepotism, just the figures before Boris Johnson got in. 5 billion, 5.5 billion, I think, lost to waste and corruption in government. 5.5 billion, the 2 years leading up to Boris Johnson. When Boris Johnson was in charge, 21 million. 21 billion, sorry. 21 billion pounds in 2 years. That was lost in fraud and government waste. That's the Tory party for you. Of our money. That's our money that we pay in our taxes, and we pay when we buy anything with VAT on it, that we pay when we work for income tax, that we pay on anything that we earn. The wealthy are fine. There's no wealth tax. You can inherit now so much money from your parents. It's ridiculous. The Tories want to even do away with the 40% threshold on rate, on inheritance tax to save Rishi Sunak's children hundreds of millions of pounds of tax that they would otherwise have to pay, to save Rees-Mogg's children hundreds of millions of pounds of tax they would otherwise have to pay. For 96% of the population, it's not going to save us a single dirty penny, which is, I think, a disgrace. I'm just going to change my light here because I realise I'm looking a bit blue. Am I looking blue? I'm looking blue. I'm going to have to change my... there you go. Now I'm looking yellow. It's better. A bit warmer. I look a bit jaundiced. Oh, well, never mind. Anyway, so I'm going to jump into the chat now. I think I've yammered on enough. Have I made my point? I don't know. Have I? One Angry Pagan, £2 super chat. Thank you very much. Fred Thomas to unseat Johnny Minge. I like that. Captain, what's this? Indeed, vote tactically. We need the Tories out. We do indeed. Talking about something about a 92-year-old woman who's been without water for 5 years after Trump cut through her water pipe to build his golf course in Scotland. Jesus wept. Starmer talking of prison sentences for fraud and abuse of public funds should be popular. Yeah, I'll be doing a video about that later today. It's on the front cover of, I think, The Guardian today. Should we have a look at the newspapers? Come on, we'll do that, because then I can bring in this what's his name? Starmer's been saying about his plans for putting all the Tory crooks in jail in future, cleaning up Parliament, cleaning up government. Parliament and government, I guess. So let's just have a quick look here. I'm not there. I have disappeared. Well, that sucks. All right, just give me 1 second. I will make myself reappear. This is why you should never do, this kind of thing. What's it called? You should never do live stuff without a producer who can make things happen. There you go. There's little me. Hello, I'm little Graham. Sorry, I don't get out much. Right. Post office scandal. Why still no justice? This is on the front cover of the Mirror newspaper. And this is about the fact that over 20 years ago, when these postmasters were fined, put in jail for something that they didn't do. It was an IT glitch. Nobody who was involved in the actual glitch or the government's subsequent cover-up or whatever happened, or incompetence at every level, none of them have faced any charges whatsoever. And some of these people had their lives destroyed, and some of them went to jail as a result of this IT glitch. Now, they were supposed to get the money. The money has been this compensation that they're supposed to be getting. It was supposed to be given to them years ago, and it's still not been given. And Rishi Sunak had an opportunity to make it so that they got the compensation. And he decided, you know what? I'm not going to do that because I'm an absolute scumbag. Because Rishi Sunak is Boris Johnson in he's just a little more compact form, and he actually brushes his hair. That's the only difference. And then this Express, as predicted, is having a go at the junior doctors, saying that they are all that it's all their fault. That the fact that the NHS is just on its knees at the moment. We've got this story on the Times about million cancellations for the patients and doctor strike, and the miracle of this flight in which 379 people were rescued from this flight that exploded within. It crashed on landing, crashed into another plane. Unfortunately, 5 people on the other plane were killed, but everyone got off that plane. That plane that you can see there, everybody got off it. 379 people. That is absolutely remarkable in 90 seconds. So if you fly, I hope you fly that type of plane. I think it was an Airbus. Yovash, thank you very much for the super chat. Would Tory ego even live through not being the main opposition party? Well, no, I hope not. I hope the Tories just dismantle themselves. They are the absolute worst. The Daily Star, they're leading with the Battle of Slag Lane, which is really important, I guess. The Daily Telegraph has got about the Israel killing this top Hamas leader in Beirut, which leads to fears that Hezbollah will start kicking off even more than they already are. But in southern Lebanon, it's not. The whole situation is horrible, absolutely horrible. I'm trying to think, pick the right word here, but it's horrible. And I wish there was more of an international consensus amongst the powerful countries to push for peace. Unfortunately, there isn't. It's in the American industrial military complex's interest for the war to continue, because it means they make loads of money out of it. In fact, we're not free of any blame there. We're one of the biggest arms manufacturers in the world, even though we're not armed like Americans are individually. We are one of the biggest arms manufacturers in the world in this country, and this means more money for us. More war, more money. Just like the tobacco industry and the petrochemical industry, these are disgusting, horrible industries that should not be allowed to exist on this planet. They shouldn't exist. They shouldn't be a thing, but unfortunately they are. Daily Mail leads at curb the NHS fat cats on £300,000. So again, there's a junior doctor strike they've walked out for 6 days, and the usual suspects, the Tory press here, are doing this crap. One of the things I was thinking about today, actually, before we move on, I'm going to go on to this Guardian piece, which I mentioned before. It was mentioned in the chat. Thank you. With the upcoming election, if you are supporting a particular political party, you have to start declaring your interests. You have to start declaring how much money you're spending on your campaign and all that. I think the Good Law Project, because I couldn't do this myself, should bring something against the Mail and the Express and the Sun, saying that they have to declare how much money they're spending on propping up the Tory party. It's fair, isn't it? If you go out and campaign for Labour, you have to declare your expenses. They're campaigning for the Tories. Why don't they have to? Worth a thought. Right, anyway, so we've got this story in the Eye newspaper about the mortgage price war that's happening now. And if I get rid of this advert, we can see this a bit more clearly. Starmer to set out a plan, go away advert, to clean up politics. And I'll just read this to you a little bit here. People who defraud the government will face going to jail for more than a decade under plans being considered by Keir Starmer as part of a wider clean-up of British politics. Are you listening, Moan? Are you listening, Barrowman? Well, I wonder what Moan's going to look like when she gets out of jail after 10 years of no top-ups. The Labour leader will pledge to restore standards in public life with a total crackdown on cronyism in a speech marking the beginning of the election year. Sources have told The Guardian that a range of policy options are being considered as part of the clean-up plan, including tougher sentences for fraud against the public purse, such as billions wasted through the COVID loan schemes. However, a separate pledge to impose a five-year moratorium on former ministers from lobbying on behalf of companies over which they once had oversight is likely to be scaled back, unfortunately, which I think is absolute bollocks, mate. Come on. Why go back? Why go back? It's not going to affect the Labour lot for many, many years, that rule, is it? But it's going to affect the Tories if you bring it in straight away. And then this barefaced lie over asylum backlog. So this is Sunak and Jimmy Dimley. our Home Secretary. He's been accused of trying to cook the books for a false immigration claim, as Home Secretary admits in Carcash radio interview that it's impossible to predict when the government will clear the outstanding cases. Nice. So there you go. Buying those front pages will be a few quid. Well, exactly. That's the way I see it. So let's get into it. Anyway, so I'm just going to read a few of your lovely messages because we're coming up to the end of the show now. So I will go back to Big Graham. Hello. Sorry, I hope I didn't scare you. Rah. If Starmer wants a stonking majority, kiss goodbye to PR in the first term, risking possibility of Tories getting straight back in on a minority of the vote. Absolutely. It's going to be one of the thrusts of this channel when after the next election, should Labour win, which we're very much hoping they will. We will be talking about PR. We'll be talking about UBI. We'll be talking about closer relations with the EU, getting back into the single market, getting back into the customs union. That's all really important stuff to us, and we want to make sure that happens. We're also going to be talking about minority rights a lot. We're going to be talking about the things that Labour can do in terms of education and healthcare. We don't want more privatisation in the healthcare. So much of our patient data has now been handed over to Planeteer, a guy called Pedophile, I think, Peter File. Isn't that an IT crowd joke? He runs this company called Planeteer, which is named after the evil seeing stones from Lord of the Rings, and they've just been given a massive government contract for all of our NHS data. American company. There's so much stuff that Labour have to do when they get into power, and I know it's going to sound mad, but it may not sound mad, but we've got to understand that Labour don't have a massive list of everything that needs fixing. There might be things that they don't know needs fixing, and we have to inform them. And one of the things that we're going to try and do on this channel is more getting active this year, and whether that means just sharing these videos, not necessarily this one, but videos that we make, but also writing to your MP, also door knocking, going around and what we're planning to do, hopefully, is get some flyers set up as a PDF, so you can just print those out at home and then just distribute them on your street. It's just little things that you can do like that. It's not going to cost anything. You don't really have to declare it or nothing, because you're just doing it off your own back. And yeah, we can hopefully make it so that the Tories are absolutely demolished in the next election. But by the way, when I say print stuff out, it'll be like stuff attacking the Tories. It won't be for any particular political party. It'll just be against the Tories. So we should be able to get around election rules and regulations in that way. But I will have to check on the rules for that before we go ahead with it. So I'll be trying to cross all my T's and dot all my lowercase j's. Peter Thiel, you mean Musk's ex-partner at PayPal? Yeah, well, there you go. Peter Thiel. A pedantic peasant, easy for you to say. As a 22-year veteran, I've worked with some amazing officers who are educated in private schools. I've also worked with some utter morons who have allegedly had amazing educational opportunities. Well, that's what I mean, pedantic peasant. I mean, the majority of people who go to private schools are fine. Do you know what I mean? I've got no argument with them. I've got no beef with them. If you go to privateschoolmafia.com, there is a big disclaimer at the beginning saying, look, some of my friends went to private school. Some of the people I work with went to private school. Some of the people who I regard as my all-time heroes, like Rick Mail, for God's sake, went to private school. Simon Pegg, Emano Iannucci, Philip Pullman, they went to private school. Roald Dahl, I mean, he went to private. But the fact remains that they do tend to hog all the top jobs. And in some of those cases, they don't even need to. Do you know what I mean? Like, they would be all right just living off their parents' inheritance, the money they got from their parents, or grandparents. They could just be sitting on a beach drinking strawberry daiquiris on a hammock. I don't know why they're not, but, Rishi Sunak does not have to go into politics. He had no reason whatsoever to go into politics. But he did. Head boy at Winchester. Lucy Willer says, PR, UBI, trans rights and protest rights. Couldn't agree more. And trans rights comes across a bunch of other sectors as well, because the erosion of the rights of one minority means the erosion of the rights of other minorities at the same time. And this sustained attack on the LGBT QIA plus community is just... it's unconscionable that we've gone back, that we have regressed so far. But it also teaches us that we can never, ever rest on our laurels. We can never go, oh, well, we got marriage equality, so we're here now. We can't do that because there'll always be monsters who want to take us back, i.e. in America, where the Supreme Court, corrupt Supreme Court of America, Clarence Thomas, famously corrupt, his wife taking part in the insurrection against the government, against the US government. Jesus Christ. 6 of them, absolute wingnut, mad Republican, libertarian, conservatives. They have backheeled Roe versus Wade, which means that abortion is now illegal in certain states in America. And they've also got rid of affirmative action as well. So those hard-won rights for people have been taken away. So we can't regard any kind of rights as something that can't be taken away. And here in our country, think about all the rights that the Tories have taken away from us in the last few years. Our rights to live and work, retire, start a business, get married in 31 other countries across our continent was taken away. Unless you're rich, and then it wasn't. The right to be able to marry whoever you want and have them live with you in this country has been taken away by the Tories. That right is something that we need back because that was your birthright and the Tories have taken it away from you. It's your children's birthright. Maybe you're a bit too old to be worrying about things like that, but your children, the idea that you've got to stay in your village and marry your sister, that is the Tory way. That is the Brexit way. That is Brexit Britain. And I don't like that. I hate that idea. As someone who has travelled more widely than most, I have to say that it just disgusts me that we live in a society in which people have had rights in the past and now they've had those rights taken away. But not if you're rich. If you are rich, you can still live and work in any of the countries in Europe. You can still marry anyone you want from any other country because you're rich. That pulling back on your rights doesn't affect you, and that is beyond wrong. How can that be fair? How can that be a fair system? It can't be. It never is, and it never will be. Anyway, exactly, Graham. If we shrug our shoulders, assume they can diff, accept the norm and say nothing, everything will be taken from us. The monsters lurk and wait for the moment. You have to fight to keep your rights. Yeah, growing up, I thought you had to fight for your right to party, but it turns out that you have to fight for your right to just keep your rights that you were born with. Is PMQs on today? Asked Northern Powerhouse. No, Parliament is still in recess and will be until next week, I think. So no PMQs today. So I'll be putting a couple of moments of truth up. I'll probably be doing one about what I was just talking about with Starmer's pledge to lock up these Tory bastards in jail for 10 years. That'll do, won't it? That'll do. So what I expect from a former Director of Public Prosecutions who's about to be our next Prime Minister. Fingers crossed. Okay, so give us a like before you go. I'm starting looking back on my Odyssey expedition to every country in the world without flying from 15 years ago. So if you would like to follow that journey, head over to theodysseyexpedition.com. I'll put the link in the description below. And there'll be new videos going out on my other channel, which is at Graham Travels. It's on YouTube. Just go youtube.com/at Graham Travels and you'll be able to watch that there. So thank you very much for watching and thanks for the chat. Thanks for the super chats as well. And until tomorrow morning when we see Phil, we'll be back for another morning brew at 9:30. I'll say thanks for watching. Hello, good evening, welcome and goodbye.